Good evening, everyone. Hi, sorry to interrupt any conversations going on. It is such a pleasure to have you here with us this evening. A huge thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Francesca Ogiaman-White and I'm the founder of the Beauty Triangle. So we're really excited to have you here tonight at the Lanesborough Health Club and Spa, not just because it's a gorgeous backdrop for a discussion on wellness, but also because it's a place that really reflects our holistic philosophy. When we started the Beauty Triangle about 2 years ago, it was to educate and empower consumers on all aspects of their health and well-being, and always from a holistic standpoint. But it was also to connect consumers with the best experts and practitioners in the business. So that takes me very neatly to my introductions and our panel. We're joined tonight by dermatologist and author of the Skincare Bible, Dr. Anjali Mahto, also aesthetic practitioner and body sculpting expert, Natalie Kelly, and finally Cornelius O'Shaughnessy, I hope I said that right, Cornelius, who is an amazing meditation teacher and one of the founders of Bodhimaya. So collectively they are going to be telling us how we can find new balance, which I suppose, contrary to the title, a lot of us are in balance. You know, we know how to keep our skin, our bodies, and our minds in check. However, sometimes seasonal fluctuations, sometimes social media, trends, wellness fads, there's all sorts that we're bombarded with, and it can sometimes send us out of kilter. So these are certainly the guys to get us back on track. A few quick things before we start. You should find a program on your seats. You'll find information on all of our brilliant speakers here tonight. If you'd like us to connect you with anyone that you hear speak, then just tick the box, leave your email address, and we will do all the connections after the event. What else? We'll have our normal Q&A at the very end, so please save any questions that you have until then and we'll get to them. And there's also an amazing goodie bag for you. We've partnered with some incredible skincare brands, Neostrata, Calcium, and there's all sorts of lovely treats in there to keep you in balance. So do not leave that behind when you go tonight. That's enough from me. I'm going to pass over to our amazing speakers. They're each going to say a quick hello and introduce themselves, and then we will get started with the main conversation. Over to you, Anjali.
So I'm Anjali Mahto. I'm a consultant dermatologist, also author of a book called The Skincare Bible. I deal with lots of skin conditions. I'm really interested in how skin and mental health tend to impact each other. So that's one of the things that I talk about a lot on my own social media. And you can find me in Harley Street.
Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie Kelly. I'm an aesthetic practitioner and Reiki healer. So definitely I practice holistically. I have opened recently a new townhouse clinic in Chelsea, and we are all around, our ethos is around mind, body and beauty in alignment. So yes, we do a few tweaks of injections, but we also do body confidence coaching and obviously face and body treatments to obviously help you look your best self.
Thank you, Natalie. Cornelius?
My name's Cornelius O'Shaughnessy. I'm an Eastern philosopher. I also am founder of Bodhimaya. We do holistic retreats combining all sorts of different therapies to help people with all sorts of different issues.
So a really nice, well-rounded panel. I'm so excited to speak to all of you. I'm sure you're all really excited to listen. Anjali, let's start with you. So as a dermatologist, you obviously see all sorts of skin conditions, but specifically, what are the ones at the moment that you think are causing us the most distress?
So I think that's a good question. If you look at sort of Google searches over the last 12 months since the pandemic hit, particularly in the sphere of dermatology and skin issues, the two top things that constantly keep coming up are acne and hair loss.
Oh, that's interesting. And hair loss, because you're a derm, and I think people often just think dermatologists are just about skin, but your hair and nails as well.
That's right. So they are probably the biggest issues actually that people are presenting about or asking questions and then saying, is it my mask? Is it stress? And I think we've had an interesting 12 to 18 months. Whether or not we feel stress, the way that we live our life has significantly changed during that period. And to think that that's not going to impact your skin is fairly unrealistic. So we're seeing lots of impacts on chronic inflammatory skin conditions being triggered by how our lifestyle has changed over the past 12 to 18 months.
And acne is an interesting one because it affects so many people. You know, you've obviously got teenagers. I think they're probably your bread and butter when it comes to acne, but you've also got sort of hormonal acne coming in. You've got menopausal acne. Like it can sort of come out in so many different ways. Pregnancy acne.
That's right. And I think that's one thing, you know, 80% of the population will suffer with acne at some point in time. So we always think, oh, you know, it's teenage kids, it's a rite of passage, it's something that all of us have to go through. What we actually don't realise is 40 to 50% of adult women will suffer with spots after the age of 23, 24.
And suddenly they're going, why have I got these spots? I had them as a teenager.
100%.
Why are they back?
The other common thing is a lot of women will start the contraceptive pill in their teenage years. They're on the pill through their late teens, early 20s, late 20s. You get to your late 20s and you think, oh my goodness, I've been on hormones for a long time. I wonder what my normal cycles are like. People come off the pill and suddenly acne flares up. And one of the reasons for that is the combined oral contraceptive pill is an acne treatment. It suppresses acne production. So it's very common to see women that go, I've never had trouble with my skin. It's been perfect for 15, 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
Come off the pill and suddenly realise, this is a new problem. I don't know how to deal with this.
That's so interesting. So the hormones have been essentially masking the acne.
And suppressing it.
And I suppose obviously in combination with the acne, you then have the low mood. And you just spoke about sort of obviously prescribing the contraceptive pill as one way to manage it. And you also have sort of oral antibiotics such as like Roaccutane, don't you? And is there literature to suggest that those medications can also have an effect on self-esteem as much as sort of poor skin can?
I think this is a good question. So Roaccutane isn't an antibiotic treatment, but it's a drug that is super high doses of vitamin A. And what these really high doses of vitamin A do, so much higher than you can buy in a supplement, is they shrink down the size of your oil glands. If your oil glands are smaller, you produce less oil. If you produce less oil, your pores won't get blocked, which means that bacteria which live on the skin can't cause spots. And Roaccutane is one of those drugs that gets a lot of airtime and a lot of press because there have been lots of case reports where people have said it causes low mood, anxiety, depression, and even cases of suicide, which have been well publicised. However, if you look at all of the clinical trial data that we have on the drug, and the drug has been around since the early 1980s, so we're talking about 4 decades worth, there is no clear evidence that this drug leads to mental health issues. The difficulty is that historically, dermatologists were very bad at recognising that acne itself causes low mood and poor body confidence and low self-esteem and anxiety and depression. And if you develop acne for the first time as a teenager, you're already going through a difficult time and you've got hormonal fluctuations everywhere. The last thing you need is your skin flaring up at the same time.
Exactly.
So I think if you look at the actual hard and fast data, there is no direct correlation. What I would say is generally if you treat people's skin and their skin improves, usually what you see is their confidence improves as well.
And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? That's so interesting. I mean, we're living in such a virtual sort of digital world now. Do you think that drive has manifested in our skin and our sort of anxiety over it?
100%. I think there is no getting away from the fact that, you know, I think when I was growing up, I would be exposed to Photoshop images in a magazine that I might buy maybe once a month. But if you look at the kids that are growing up these days, all they've grown up with is social media and Instagram and the accessibility of filters and filtering your body image. And,
exactly.
you know, you go
reshaping, refiltering, smoothing
100%.
out, decreasing.
It's like everyone does it. Everyone photoshops themselves. And it's creating a massive issue between one's perception of what they look like and what they should look like and the actual reality of what they do look like. So from a skin perspective, it's this idea that skin is not supposed to have pores.
Yes,
it's not
I remember
supposed
you
to
saying
have
this to me, like
texture.
everyone is obsessed with being pore-free all of a sudden,
You know,
which is not possible.
It's absolutely not, but we're so not used to seeing images anymore of real skin. And gone are the days where, you know, you compare yourself to the pretty girl in your class. You're comparing yourself to the pretty girl in every country in the world that is on social media. I am not surprised.
And who has also been photoshopped and filtered.
Who has also been photoshopped and filtered. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing mental health issues related to skin rising. But it's a genuine issue, and I don't really know if we are equipped to deal with it in terms of the mental health services that we currently have.
I think something definitely needs to shift, doesn't it? Hopefully conversations like this, you know, at least get the ball rolling. I mean, what does healthy skin look like to most of us, considering we are living in this very digital, virtual, photoshopped world at the moment?
So the first thing I would say is skin does change with age. Skin does change with hormonal fluctuations. These are things that we can recognise and that we know. These are going to be reliable, consistent changes that we see. It is normal for skin tone to start becoming uneven as we get older. And that's because of sun exposure. You know, every year of life that we get older, which is a privilege,
That's so true. It's a good thing to remember.
We get a bit more sun and a bit more sun and a bit more sun. It doesn't matter how rigorous you are with your SPF. No sunscreen 100% blocks out sunlight.
And a lot of it is obviously damage that's probably been caused back in your teenage years,
Absolutely.
where you were not wearing SPF, you were wearing baby oil on the beach.
No, absolutely. And I think, there's a generation, certainly, my age and my skin tone, I wasn't told to wear sunscreen when I was growing up. It just wasn't a thing. So part of it is you will see pigmentation as you get older. That's normal. Pore size does become more prominent as you get older. If you have any issues like acne scarring also becomes more prominent as you get older. Because as we get older, we start to lose collagen, that main protein in our skin.
Yeah.
But the other normal thing that happens to all of us is the fine lines, the wrinkles that start to develop. And what's really interesting is they develop at different ages in different ethnic groups, which is absolutely fascinating. So if you look at the signs of so melanin is incredibly protective of certain things, but it doesn't help in other ways. So if you have very fair skin, so if you are blonde haired, you have blue eyes, you burn very, very easily in the sun. I'm so sorry, I'm looking straight at you. You're smiling at me as well. But what will happen, and this is a generic, I don't mean you, is you will start to notice lines and wrinkles developing on the upper third of the face earlier than you will get sagging of the skin. But if you look at a woman of Asian descent or black descent of a similar age, you won't see fine lines and wrinkles, but you will notice sagging in the skin much more quickly.
And what's that to do with, like, skin thickness? Or?
It is. It's to do more with loss of fat and collagen in the deeper layers of the skin, or the dermis that you see in skin of colour, whereas you see a lot more superficial changes in the epidermis or the top layer in fair skin types. So it's a really strange thing in clinic, but if I get a fair-skinned Caucasian patient, I know that if they want to do something, they will need Botox before they need filler. But if I see somebody with skin of colour, so Asian or black skin, they're probably not going to need their Botox for a good 5 years or so, but they will need their filler beforehand. So it's interesting that, we can't say that we all age in the same way either.
Yeah. I mean, you and I often talk about the sort of detrimental effects of some of these so-called health fads and trends. What are the things that you think, in all honesty, are causing the biggest issues right now when it comes to the skin, the hair loss, the sort of depletion that we're all facing?
I think as humans, we like to have control, and we like to control things as much as possible, rather than recognise that unfortunately life is a series of random chaotic events, and like COVID has shown us that.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest issues that I personally see is I think that a lot of people try and manipulate their lifestyles to control their skin. Now that doesn't mean that lifestyle is not important. It absolutely is. Eating well is really important for your skin, making sure that you're maintaining fitness levels, all of that, anything that's good for your general health is good for your skin.
And it will be boosting endorphins, you'll do your exercise, and that's going to have a great mental capacity.
But I think the issue comes, and I think this is what I tend to see, is I tend to see a lot of people that try to control their skin conditions by removing a lot of things out of their diet. So I see a lot of people that are like, well, I'm gluten-free, and I'm dairy-free, and I'm sugar-free. And then what you find is that list gets smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of what people will eat.
And it's so reductive. I mean, what are they eating at the end?
It's honestly, it's worrying, because what will happen is the skin doesn't get better, but also then that degree of control, it almost makes people feel like they are failing. And there's an issue of self-blame of, well, I mustn't be eating the right thing, I mustn't be using the right face wash, I need to spend more money on the right face wash or the right skincare. And the truth is, a lot of skin conditions are genetically determined. It's the way that our skin cells are programmed.
Yeah.
And you can control that a little bit with your lifestyle, but I think it's a mistake to think you can control it completely with your lifestyle.
And I'm hearing a lot of doctors, dermatologists all say there are definite links between things like veganism, for example, not getting enough protein into your diet, having poor skin, having the hair loss. Is that something that you're seeing?
So I do blood tests for various reasons on my patients, but the one thing that I'm consistently flagging, because I ask everybody about their diet and what they eat, and is your diet inclusive, are you vegetarian, are you vegan, is there anything I need to know?
Yeah.
Because it can have relevance in certain skin conditions. But a lot of people are turning to veganism for ethical reasons or switching to more plant-based diets. And inherently, there's nothing wrong with that, provided you're getting the right bits that you need from your diet or from supplementation. But I'm seeing a lot of people cutting out And then their iron, that's always the one thing that I'm seeing. Their iron is in their boots, and I'm incidentally finding it. And then if you
and they
have
must
low
be on
iron,
the floor as well.
I mean,
energetically.
tired, but also it causes hair loss. You know,
Yeah.
if your iron levels are low, your hair will fall out. And then that goes back to what's the biggest thing people are complaining about over the last year? It's acne and hair loss. So that's one easy thing that actually lifestyle can fix.
Yeah, and you mentioned supplementation. Is that something that we should all be doing? Like, are there things we ought to be taking? Are there things that are not worth it that you think we're taking too much of?
So I think this is a good question. I think a lot of it is context. So nearly all of us can benefit from vitamin D supplementation between the months of October and March. And that's simply
Now.
because, the UK is a very northerly latitude. We do not get enough ultraviolet B radiation at this time of year. Sunlight is made up of lots of radiations, and UVB is the one that acts on our skin to produce vitamin D. There's just not enough of it around. So we can all benefit from that. And then I think specifically from skin conditions point of view, if you've got hair loss, you want to make sure your B12, your folate, your ferritins, your iron levels are adequate, and those are being replaced if you're not getting them from your diet. If I see a patient with psoriasis is an inflammatory skin condition, and there are case reports of psoriasis and rosacea being the other one, where if you supplement with omega-3, there can be benefit. So if you have a diet that has no fish at all in it, you could take a supplement, but it's always better from your diet. So incorporating 2 portions of oily fish a week may have an adjunctive benefit in those types of conditions. But if you can't do that, then a supplement is the next best thing.
Food is always medicine, isn't it? But I suppose sometimes it's very difficult to incorporate that into your lifestyle.
I think if one is eating well for their eyes and their heart and their gut, they're going to be eating well for their skin. The thing that I don't have a lot of time for is collagen supplements.
I was going to ask you about collagen. Honestly, every time we do an event, somebody puts up their hand at the end and they say, what are your thoughts on collagen drinks?
Yeah.
And you're the woman who is all about clinical data and research, so I feel confident asking you this question.
Yeah, and I'm going to caveat this with, if you can show me better data and prove me wrong, I'm very happy to be proven wrong. But what I'm going to do is talk about the current data that we have. And the current data that we have is collagen is a protein. So like having a piece of steak is a protein. When you have that collagen is going to be broken down into bits known as amino acids. And that happens in your gut. Then those amino acids travel around in your digestive system, and there is no way that they know that they need to then suddenly travel to your skin, reform in your skin to build new collagen. Now, there are people that will say, yes, but there are bits of hydrolyzed collagen in certain supplements where they don't give you the whole protein, they gave you little bits of the protein to fool your body into thinking that the broken bits are a sign of injury, so your body must produce new collagen. But it goes back to the same thing. Even if there's broken bits of collagen floating around, we have 30 different types of collagen in our body. So our
Wow,
skin,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so type 1 and type 3 are the main ones in skin.
Yeah.
But, there's type 2 and 4 in joints. There's lots and lots of different types of collagen.
Yeah.
The whole point is, and they all are fairly similar with a few little subtle differences between them.
Yeah.
So the question then becomes, how do these broken bits of collagen floating around know that they need to form into type 1 versus type 30 and then end up in the right bit of the body? So if you look at the positive trials that we have at the moment, the positive trials normally are funded by collagen companies, so there is a conflict of interest, or they are incredibly small studies, so it means that you can't necessarily draw the data that you need from them, or if you are the kind of person that's taking collagen supplement, because they're not cheap, they come at an expense, you are already the kind of person that's probably invested in your skincare. You're probably already using your sunscreen every day. You're probably already using your retinol. You're probably already doing other treatments. How then do you prove that it's the collagen and not all of those other things that you're doing to yourself? So my take generally is, if you have a good diet and you eat plenty of protein, I wouldn't waste your money on collagen supplements. If you want to take them and you have money to spend and it's something that makes you feel better, I think currently I would say there's a positive placebo effect in that. That might change, my opinion might change, but I have not seen anything yet to convince me so far that it's worth me spending my money on collagen.
Okay. Okay, well, watch this space. When
Yeah.
your mind changes, then we can go back to drinking it.
Yeah.
Joking. Final question. When you do see a patient who's coming to you with a real crisis of confidence due to their skin, what's your first port of call? Do you go for the topicals or do you go for the in-clinic treatments?
It genuinely depends on the extent and the severity of their skin condition. So mental health with skin conditions is really interesting in that there are some skin conditions where the worse the skin condition or the more visible it is, the worse your mental health will be.
Okay.
There are
that makes
other
sense.
skin conditions where you could have a really mild version of that skin condition, but it will not correlate with the severity of the symptoms that you feel and the distress that it causes you.
Okay.
So you could have so acne is the prototype of this. You could have very mild acne, but it could utterly ruin your life because it doesn't fit with how bad it looks versus how it makes you feel.
That's so true.
So I think it's always really important to try and gauge, and the questions I ask in clinic are, do you feel self-conscious about your skin? Is there anything that you would like to be able to do that your skin's not letting you do? Is that, you're not wearing makeup today, is that for my benefit? Would you normally go out without makeup to the gym or to meet your friends? And often the answers to those questions are quite revealing.
Yeah, I can imagine. You have to be a bit of a psychologist as a dermatologist as well when it comes to skin anxiety.
Yeah, I think you have to pick up the issues, and then, I personally refer a lot to clinical psychology. I think nearly everyone that sees me also has to have the mental health hand in hand, because I think it's really important.
It's a great approach and it's very modern. Brilliant. Thank you, Anjali. That was really, really interesting.
Thank you.
Natalie, next, all about the body now. So, I mean, we spoke a lot about sort of the skin and the face and how anxiety manifests there. What are the areas of our bodies that are causing us most sort of, I suppose, anxiety right now?
I would say obviously since lockdown, definitely we've seen a big increase in new clients and people approaching the clinic with anxiety issues related to how they look. Predominantly I treat a lot of females more than males in my clinic, and I would say we have a lot of younger clients. Some millennial type clients come because they've had young children, they have a mummy tummy, so they're looking to have some fat reduction, and obviously they have some skin loss and elasticity issues. Of course, maybe they don't want to do surgery, maybe they don't want to go under anaesthetic because they have a young family, or they don't want the downtime, or they can't afford to do it. So I definitely think abdomen is a big one. And
it's really interesting, the tummy as well, because it's like an area that changes so much at every chapter of our life as well, particularly if you do go through sort of childbirth and have a family. It can be unrecognisable for some people afterwards.
Yeah. Of course, and obviously if you follow me on social media, you will know that I obviously discuss endometriosis and sometimes post photos of myself and having endo belly, and I think there is obviously another type of client who of course go through struggles, what we discussed about hormonal issues and fluctuations and endometriosis and weight gain, and of course they all want advice on what they can do, but maybe if you've been through enough surgery because you have a chronic pain condition, you definitely are not that, up for going through another surgery based on just the cosmetically how you look.
100%.
Cellulite is also another big one, and I would say in our older type of clients, probably a lot of kind of bra fat area, love handles,
all the little bulges that
all the little
diet
bulges.
and exercise do not touch the size when it comes to. What do you think is driving the anxiety around sort of body image at the moment? I mean, we're sort of bombarded with so many things right now, aren't we?
Well, interestingly, I'm a millennial, of course. I'm quite active social media, but I think what's different is that I do treat a lot of millennials, so it's actually really interesting because I've been in the industry for 10 years. In the past, I used to say I practice anti-aging medicine, whereas today it's completely...
You can't say the word anti-aging anymore as well, I feel like. It's sort of
it's
positive
not very,
aging,
yeah, positive aging.
It's a nice, change.
But I think everything in today's marketing social media is all around education and empowerment and looking our best self, and this can be from any age, Clients are seeking treatments, maybe they have genetic concerns, and they're well educated because of social media that they can correct these quite easily. So I think there's a lot of pressures with social media, obviously celebrity culture also.
Like Anjali said.
Yes, and it's quite challenging. That's of course why I set up a clinic where I, say no a lot of the times and often refer and send my clients to go and have some therapy and some help, or at least provide a safe space because I felt like before, if I said no, they would just go next door and have treatment done that psychologically wasn't going to make them feel any better.
Yeah, exactly.
So within reason if they need it, but I also want to manage that, their expectations and that their mental health is being protected.
Particularly with that millennial age group. I mean, the whole sort of Facebook scandal that's happened at the moment, and they were saying that there's data that Facebook knew about in 2019 saying that 1 in 3 teenage girls has said that their body anxiety has been visibly heightened from spending time on Instagram. And it fits perfectly with sort of what you're saying. I think it's so wonderful that you've created this safe space. I mean, Natalie's clinic on Walton Street is probably, it's one of the most elegant, but it's also one of the most zen places I've ever been. You host all sorts of like workshops there, don't you?
Yeah, so we have a wellness lounge, and that's really an area where, I need to cope and help everyone else. I need to go there and recharge and do my meditation. Maybe
Just go for a nap.
Maybe you can give me some tips. But yeah, it's a great space. So we was doing some Zoom workshops when we was in lockdown, like dream board, visual board making, sound healing, body confidence, and I'm really trying to create kind of a like-minded community where people can come and feel safe within the space to kind of network, and they get to chat to me when I'm not busy back to back in my uniform, just apply for a week, and just all really empower each other to feel good.
Yeah, exactly. I think empowerment is what it's all about when it comes to addressing the body. What are the things that sort of people are wanting to sort of see you for? I mean, you mentioned things like cellulite, skin laxity, unwanted fat. What are you using at the moment in clinic that can help us to address those sorts of issues?
So I have a magic wand. Sometimes, that's needles, and other times it's the Nuirotite. So we launched a new platform called Nuirotite, and it's really good at working on the fat reduction, also smoothing the skin, and cellulite and tightening the skin all in one function. And it has like multiple applicators, which is really good because you can literally use it from top to toe. So a lot of my clients are not really obese. They all work out, they all look after themselves, and it's literally like, I'm working out, I'm monitoring my diet. They might even see a nutritionist already, but it's just that extra little bit. For instance, just a little tummy bulge, or just a little bit that falls over the bikini. I want to look good in the summer.
I actually had this with you pre my wedding on the backs of my arms, which I think is an area that actually a lot of women are very self-conscious about. And I've only had one session with you, in all honesty, but I definitely noticed that the skin was much tighter, and I was saying this to you earlier, I felt like I could actually see like muscles in my arms for once, which was really nice.
Yeah, I think they are doing some studies to show that it does do some muscle tone, so we might be launching that soon. But I think no one is perfect, and no one has a perfect body, and we all have, strengths and weaknesses, and definitely as a practitioner, I always compliment my client when they're pulling themselves apart about one area. I will be like, but look at your eyes, but look at your stomach, but look at your legs,
That's so nice. Because also it's so difficult sometimes to, undress in front of a practitioner who you may never have met before and start being very open about the things that really bother you.
Yeah. I think maybe I attract certain types of clients who are a bit more open because I'm very open on my social media. I do have an interesting background. Of course, I used to be a bikini model and a bikini competitor.
Yes, so tell us about this. This is fascinating. So this must really feed into how you approach the body as well.
Yeah, I think because I've studied nutrition, and I obviously push myself to the extremes of standing on stage in a bikini like a crazy person, just for, a fitness challenge. But I did think that if you looked like that, even with my medical training, that you would be healthy. But what happened was I dropped down ridiculous weight. I was weighing and measuring my food. I become very obsessive. I probably developed slight body dysmorphia. Afterwards, I didn't know what foods was right, what was healthy. My period stopped. I had hormone problems. I was obviously then trying to, manage my clinic and my clients and grow. I wasn't healthy. I wasn't sleeping. Looked great in a bikini, but, in reality,
Isn't that interesting,
you can't walk around like that every day.
And it goes to show it's not all about surface appearances. How did you come back from that?
I had a lot of blood tests and just worked on myself a lot, spiritual development and yoga and exercise. And I think as a woman, that was something that was more early 20s. And then when you move more 30s and then closer to 40s, then you start to really be bit more confident in your skin, and you also kind of find what works for you, because you need to be able to have balance. That is, you can eat the right foods that you can sustain the lifestyle. If you need to diet to step on stage to look good, actually, was that really benefiting me and my future of my health, of my, you know, female organs and my hair and my skin. So yeah, you can't sustain running a successful business by depleting your body to that degree. But of course because I've been within that world, and then I'm obviously in the medical world, and then my approach is a little bit more westernized also. I think I kind of have an overview sometimes when people come that I can relate quite easily to them.
It's interesting to marry that sort of very cutting edge technology with a very sort of human sort of holistic approach. I think that's what's really sort of powerful right now. I mean, you spoke about the New Era Titans sort of addressing all of these different issues, but how, I mean, because we all have different issues, so how is it able to do cellulite for one person, skin laxity for another, and unwanted fat for
so the technology is, you know, radio frequencies are all technology, but the way I describe the machine is kind of like the new iPhone. So it's like the newest, fastest, you know, easiest to use from a practitioner point of view, but super comfortable for the client. It just feels like a hot stone massage. So again, really marrying that wellness and that relaxation. You know, in my clinic, it's aromatherapy and heated beds and duvet when we're doing our treatments. But we can really tailor make. So the machine is, again, super intelligent touchscreen, and what we can do is, if we want fat reduction, we kind of heat it to 45 degrees Celsius.
Because that's the temperature that fat then breaks down.
Destroys the fat.
Yeah.
And then if we want to smooth the cellulite, we all have dimples and lumps and bumps, and the contour like 43 degrees, and then skin tightening 40 degrees. And we still do that on body, but also we do it around here.
Yeah.
So sometimes I still custom a lot for the face, for kind of double chin and for jowls.
Yeah.
It works quite nicely, and it feels just so nice.
But that must be amazing for the face as well. Super relaxing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to things like downtime, because that's a huge barrier for a lot of patients, isn't it, when they're looking at these treatments? What is the downtime on something like
There's
that
zero
device?
downtime, which is great. So usually it's kind of a 20-30 minute session per body area. You know, once a week for 4 to 6 weeks. Drink your water, and the machine kind of does the rest. So, we did have a lot of clients like saying, you know, I've just booked a holiday, or the restrictions have just been lifted.
Yeah,
I've gone on so much weight in the lockdown. We literally
people.
have 4 or 6 weeks, and with my personal trainer, can we come? Because even unfortunately, if you do have a great trainer and you do, you know, you might yo-yo diet, you have skin laxity. So even if you're slim, we spoke about it before, we do have clients who are very, very, very slim, but then, for instance, they look great, but 40s, 50s, but then they have like the crappy, saggy knees that they then want to help with, all the arms, you know, the tone, but then they have the laxity that is the giveaway.
And you spoke about this earlier, it's not actually necessarily the big areas, it's not necessarily the stomach or back to beyond, sometimes it is the knees or the bra fat or the bulge, and people are very discerning now.
Yeah, it's about
the things
creating
that
that silhouette. I think, like you say, people are all admiring or wanting to be, you know, what's on social media and what's in fashion and how to look good. So, they want all the tips and tricks.
And when, I mean, all of these devices, I feel like can get some really incredible results, but everyone always stresses the importance of, you know, a balanced lifestyle at the same time, don't they? Like, what does that look like to you as an aesthetic practitioner? How do you get your patients to fully understand and embrace that so that they get the, you know, greatest results?
Yeah, so I'm quite strict. So most of my clients will come and have minimum 45-minute new client lifestyle consultation with me. And I will obviously take full medical history, aesthetic history, but lifestyle questions. So we'll be asking them all about supplementation, and, you know, children, smoking, sun, everything that they do. So I can really try and get this holistic 360 approach to kind of maybe their habits and how committed they are going to be to the treatment. And usually once you consult them and they're feeling proactive and they know that they've paid for a course of treatment and they're coming to see you every week, a bit like when I had to check in with my coach to get on stage, it kind of kicks your ass, right? Because you're like, I'm getting undressed every week, I've paid for it, and I want to see the results. So I would be saying, make sure you eat as healthy, as balanced as possible, and of course, you know, extra massage or lymphatic drainage, as much exercise as possible, and it all within combination will make you feel good. But I think when they feel empowered to do that, I think it sets them on a nice little journey of looking after themselves that we see continues kind of afterwards. Usually then they're like, what else can I use it and what else can I do? And already I'm feeling, you know, much better, and the posture
you've had
is
your
much
face,
better.
you've had all of your body, there's nothing left to treat. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Natalie. Really, really interesting stuff. Cornelius, last but not least. So obviously we've touched on skin, we've touched on body, and I think mind is obviously at the sort of crux of, you know, what we sort of need to be thinking about when it comes to anxiety. But you see patients or clients from all walks of life, don't you? But I suppose what are most of them coming to see you for, would you say?
Now we have a lot of people that have had issues kind of that become people that were on the edge kind of before COVID and lockdown that have kind of been pushed over it. Lots of issues with gut, lots of issues with stress, lots of issues with weight loss. Everyone's been overeating, myself included, in lockdown.
Quarantine 15, if you will.
Yeah, but the main thing that we have is the anxiety. Anxiety is through the roof for a lot of people.
Anxiety is interesting because I feel like it's almost just a catchphrase like for everything now, but it's definitely a word that we've only started to hear in the past, I don't know, 3-4 years, I feel like in sort of consumer circles anyway, and suddenly everyone has anxiety, which they probably do.
Not necessarily everyone, but a lot of people do, and it comes down to the way we're living our lives now, the kind of sneaking, creeping of, you know, overuse of technology, a lot of the kind of lifestyle issues that we develop. It's produced, like I said before lockdown, we had anxiety, and now with all of these other issues that are arising from the kind of measures that are being taken and people's worries about COVID itself, it's kind of taken some people through the roof. And what I notice is, as well as a lot of people, the fears people have are completely irrational, so they don't have a clear risk assessment of actually what's in front of them.
With COVID, for example.
Yeah, people have no idea or they have a very mixed up idea of what their actual risk is. So if you look at the risk, it's like 99.7% for people, most people under, I think, 60 or 70 is it, that are making a full recovery. People that are dying have comorbidities. 80% of them have obesity. 80% of them have, in one study showed to have vitamin D issues. So, and a lot of people, when you look at it, we did some polls in America, and some people were saying it was like 10 or 20% chance they'd die if they got COVID. Like a good a good solid, you know, I think it was 30 to 40%, 50% in, depending on what political party you were a part of. So there's this, and I get that often the kind of government of kind of want people to be afraid in order for them to do certain things or not do certain things, and actually the side effect of pushing people into extreme anxiety that's completely divorced from the actual risk is that you send people crazy. And so what we're having people come to us now with, like I said, half the people are struggling with, you know, issues that have come lockdown. A couple of other people, their risk assessment for COVID and what's going on with it is completely distorted. I went around someone's house the other day, and their kids were kind of masked and gloved because they were around someone that their friends were around or something like that.
Wow. And
to kind of think about a child's risk, and then yet you just walk in the car and get in the car with the child. There's obviously increased risk, far greater than COVID for that. So, yeah.
People don't have a grasp on how to sort of live in balance, I suppose.
And I say to people, turn off the news and read the data. You can get the government data of how who's got it, you know, vaccinated, unvaccinated, all your risks, everything is in there. They do Oxford University done a COVID risk calculator, and I encourage you all to go on that and to fill out your comorbidities and whatever else is going on with you. You will be shocked at how low your risk is.
That's really interesting.
I've not met one person that's not unbelievably shocked by about how low their risk is.
And you mentioned all the other things that have cropped up as a result of that sort of pandemic lifestyle. So that's things like you were saying, like the weight gain and I suppose the social anxiety sometimes, getting back into situations like this, like coming out and
I mean, we were just saying, weren't we? We were just, you know, we before, you know, COVID, we used to doing these things a couple of times a week, whatever, and you just kind of do it. And actually, not having done it for a while, you're like, oh, actually, I'm going to give a talk in front of loads of other humans, and you know, so it feels quite bizarre. But yeah, I think the side effect of the kind of measures that have been taken to kind of control COVID, and now there's another element on it, which is the kind of political instability. People having severe worries, that contacting me that they're worried about they're going to lose their job, they're not going to be able to feed their families. These are really serious issues, and people don't like to talk about them, and you're encouraged not to, but this is really serious. I mean, especially with lockdown, people have been put on furlough, which is 80% of their money. Taking 1/5 of a cut down in your money for some people is the difference between eating and not eating.
Yeah.
And now you're saying to the same people, and some people for whatever reasons have decided not to take a vaccine or whatever, and you're now saying to them that they can't work, they're going to have this happen, and everyone's calling them the problem and everything like this. This is not healthy. This is not, from a philosophical point of view, this will cause, if we think COVID's caused an issue, this will cause an issue about 100,000 times bigger than COVID.
God, that's quite sobering.
Yeah, and I don't use that number lightly.
Yeah.
I want people to be alarmed about what's happening.
So with your approach, and your Bodhimaya sort of retreats have been going for a long time, well before COVID. How long have you been doing them for?
Oh, since 2012.
Okay, so a long time. But how does the approach of the Bodhimaya retreat, or even the sort of one-to-one sessions that you do with your clients, how does that help them to reframe all of this sort of anxiety and the extremes that we're all going
through? So we look at a kind of 360 solution. So for some people, I work closely with a nutritionist that focus on a functional medicine model. So we get people tested to see what's going on with them. It's kind of physical,
like deficiencies.
Deficiencies and whatever else. See if there's something like that needs addressing. Then we help people with kind of exercise and yoga, and then we also overlay a kind of meditation, mindfulness, and all of these kind of things. So we take a kind of 360 holistic approach, and most people present to us with a problem that's actually not the core problem, or that there's a problem that's much more prevalent that they aren't aware of.
They sort of found the symptom rather than the root cause of it.
Yeah, I mean they might come to us and say, I've got gut issues, and then you're listening to them or you're watching them in the consultation, and they're like, they're stressed out, and you say to me, have you thought about stress? I'm not stressed. I don't need to deal with stress. My gut doesn't work. And you're like, okay. Well, I tell you what, I have 3 free sessions on me, and if you think they're worth doing after that, and you do 3 sessions, you get them doing the meditation. They're like, oh my God, my gut's so much better.
Yeah. What all of you do, all 3 of you, is you have to really unpick everything when it comes to a patient, right? And you have to really go back to what is that, baseline that's causing all of these knock-on sort of snowballing effects. Yeah,
you have to look at it. It's personalised. You have to really look at someone. You have to spend time with them, and like you were saying, going through consultation, really talking to someone. You were saying as well that someone come into the clinic with a particular issue and you wouldn't have known had you not seen them, and really kind of listened to what was going on in their lives, and actually spending time with someone, which is what a lot of people don't have the time to do with their GPs. You find out things, you're like, oh my God, why don't you tell me that the moment you walk through the door,
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned meditation, and can you tell us a little bit about how you found meditation? Because it's quite an interesting sort of route into it.
So I mean, I had a nervous breakdown when I was 15. I started to get depression. 18, I had a nervous breakdown. It lasted for 10 years. And I know some people kind of use the term nervous breakdown lightly, but I was completely non-functional. So all I would do was get up and eat, and then go back to sleep. I was crying. I was stressed all the time. I was CBT. I couldn't actually kind of engage with the therapist to be able to actually go through the sessions. So I tried all sorts of different SSRIs, antidepressants and everything, and I was unluckily treatment resistant. So the doctor said, "Look, hands up. We've tried a lot of stuff, and actually your body's not responding." So and I started to look at all sorts of alternative methods like homeopathy and meditation and this and that. And I studied weekend courses of meditation here, and they would kind of help and touch the spot a little bit. But they weren't. I was reading the ancient texts, and they were like freedom from suffering, and I'm like, I'm not getting this. So I thought, but I was determined, because so many people said that you can free the mind from suffering through this method. So I started travelling to India and going to find people that genuinely understood these ancient texts and these ancient teachings at great depth. And it was very, very interesting. The type of philosophy I teach is called it's a direct method. It's supposed to work very quickly. And
there's so many different types of meditation. It's sort of finding the right one that suits you, I think.
That's exactly it. There's like thousands of different ones. But the type of teaching that I do, it's less meditation and more conversation, actually.
Oh,
so you do only 5-10 minutes of meditation twice a day, so it's not too demanding on the meditative front.
Yeah.
But actually the talking and the conversation about where you're at and how your relationship is with your thoughts and others and everything, this becomes more important. And I found one teacher who just for half an hour just thrash me to bits, about my perspective and my outlook on the world,
Yeah, and so how does it help the clients sort of to go through this sort of talking meditation? Like, what is that doing to all of the sort of anxiety and the thoughts that are running riot in their mind?
Well, the first thing is getting someone to actually have a clear understanding of how the mind works, and we invariably don't understand how the mind works. So your thoughts and your emotions arise, they're conditioned patterns of response, so they just arise effortlessly, and if you sit in meditation, you can actually watch them. They actually happen all by themselves. You don't make thought happen or make emotions happen. And what people do is they over-identify with this conditioned process. So these are just conditioned things, thoughts, feelings, emotions. They come through the mind. But actually your mind is something that is the container for those things, but it's something that exists beyond those things. And what most people do is they don't have an experience of their mind beyond thought and emotion, to the point where they believe they are their thoughts and emotions. And actually that therein lies the problem.
So you can't dwell too much on what your mind is telling you, like...
Well, your thoughts and emotions, if you understand them as conditioned patterns of response to help you navigate through the world, it all of a sudden becomes much easier to deal with thoughts and emotions as they are across the board, anxiety and stress and depression. But when you over-identify with it and you say, this is me, this is who I am not that which has thoughts and emotions and experiences them, I am them, then you create a lock, so you believe you are that, and therefore you'll never let go of those thoughts or emotions, because they're your constructed sense of identity. So what I'm helping people do is understand that that's not who they are, and that they can just let go of all of that, and it is all imagined. So your thoughts and your emotions are imagined. You're having an internal hallucinatory experience. You're hallucinating all the responses you're now having to my words, to the environment, even the colours that you're seeing here now. There's no colours on anything, your mind's painting them. So you're having an internal hallucinated experience, and people don't realise this.
That is so... I feel like I've been microdosed or something. But it does make perfect sense. And somebody once said to me, like, mindfulness is very much about, obviously, just being in the present, sort of not dwelling on what's happened in the past, because that's a memory, and not projecting what you think might happen in the future, because that's just your mind coming up with an idea or a fantasy.
Well, we exist in the narratives that we have about things, and like I said, we're so wedded to them in so many ways. They're who we are and our thoughts and our emotions, that it comes in with this lock. And especially things like trauma. People feel, they come to me and they say, I'm completely, utterly damaged by trauma. I don't believe you. I think you're talking nonsense. And then I talk to them on that basis to get them to realise that, and I'm not going against kind of therapy or psychotherapy. I think it's very, very useful, but at a certain point you have to get people to realise that they're holding on to this idea of a damaged self, and that actually they don't need, that there's no damaged self outside of that imagination of one.
So you need to break down the identity that they think they have.
Well, it feels like such a big deal, but like, put your damaged self out on the table. I mean, you can't, because it's hallucinated.
That's so interesting.
Well, the glass has more reality than your internal perception of self.
Yeah.
It's just the clue's in the title. It's sense of self.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. So all the individual that you think is collecting all these traumas and affected, and I'm wounded and I'm this and I'm that, you're hallucinating. It's not there.
Is there a lot of work that the individual has to do in their own time, in their own space? Because obviously you've got the sessions with you. You said you refer to nutritionists and maybe psychotherapists and things, but obviously a lot of it comes down just to you doing the work, right?
You have to. I mean, this is not. I mean, people come to us sometimes and they want us to kind of wave a magic wand, and we just can't do that. I mean, you can lead the horse to water, but it has to drink. Yeah. So yeah, certainly you have to have an engagement, especially with this type of stuff, because the type of stuff I'm teaching, it requires you really get your head in it. If I tell you that, what I've just told you, and you actually go home and start living that and thinking about what I've said, it will totally transform your life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It takes repetition.
Sorry?
It takes repetition. You have to keep exploring these things and focusing on them. And with the nutrition front, you have to keep engaged, obviously, making sure that you're following up on recommendations.
So the nutrition and the supplementation, how does that fit into what you do with Bodhimaya?
So yeah, we people come to us with all sorts of issues. So I get, because of what I do, we get a lot of people dealing with anxiety and stuff like that, but we get a lot of people that are focusing on gut issues or autoimmune issues. And we kind of made a name for ourselves for really just drilling into the detail in terms of the biomarkers that we can look at that give us an indication of what's going on with someone's body. We were one of the first people actually to start kind of competently analysing genetic data as well in terms of a wellness perspective. So what a lot of genetic places will do is you get your genes and they give you a list of recommendations based on those genes, but actually whether those genes are potentiating, whether they're having an effect, whether there's other things, it depends on a lot of things. And so what you actually have to do is you have to overlay a lot of other testing on top of those genes in order to be able to make sense and feel around it. And
exactly.
It takes time to do, but that's the way to do it, and that's what we started doing with our clients. It's just playing detective, basically.
It's very innovative though, because to hear you talk about meditation and we're all hallucinating, it's very good that you also do the biomark testers, and it's grounded in science at the end of the day as well, which I think you need that balance, don't you? So to keep using that balance. It's on my mind tonight.
No, it's true.
And final question, your Bodhimaya retreats, obviously, do they take place in the Cotswolds? Do I have that right?
We've done all sorts of different retreats, and also we've done hotels. We've done Cowdrey House. We used to do retreats that we haven't since lockdown, because for obvious reasons. And then we have retreats at Villa Lacoste. We have retreats at a place called Chateau Auvergne. We've done a retreat in the Maldives. So we've done Mexico. So we've done a few different places.
But then you're also doing them here, aren't you? Like little urban retreats.
We're doing the urban retreats here, which is like 24, 48 hours of coming in and seeing all sorts of different therapists to give you a program of what you can do going forward, but also to relieve a lot of this underlying stress and anxiety. You'd be shocked, and everyone is. And say, what can you do in 24 hours? You'd be absolutely shocked about what you can do when you just get someone for 24 hours, 48 hours, and actually start overlaying the right kind of advice and giving them some space.
That's interesting, because a lot of certainly the medical spas are very strict with, you must be here for 7 days. That's how long it takes us to affect change. Whereas the mind is a little bit more malleable, a bit faster to react.
It just depends. And a lot of people coming to us don't have 7 days, or they really need something addressing. And actually coming and seeing, especially here when we've got people for 24, 40 hours, and you've got different therapists and experts looking at them, you see a lot in that time, and you're able to overlay a much better program. But the most important thing that it gives is that time where someone has that break and that peace. And actually, you might, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days is great if you can do it. But again, you'd be surprised at what you can achieve in 24, 48 hours and how much of a turnaround you can have. And for a lot of people that haven't got the time to go to, or the inclination to go to somewhere for
10 days.
They maybe live around the corner, but they that's on your list then, isn't it?
Exactly.
But you actually, even if you live around the corner, actually coming here and having time for us to look after you and see what you need is.
Do you confiscate people's phones when they come?
Depends. If they're like this, then sometimes, but no, not here. We're very, very relaxed about the recommendations, but occasionally if someone comes with a problem of, I've got an issue with technology, I will say, well, how about, and we kind of negotiate about where the phone can be locked and all that kind of stuff.
Negotiate, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Cornelius. I'm definitely coming to the Maldives.
Sounds good.
That is probably, that does take us to the end of our discussion. There's no really about it. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to all of our speakers. You were great. What I was going to say is it strikes me that actually all of the conversations we're having, whether it's about skin, body shaping, about resetting our minds, it's not new stuff, but actually I think what each of you are doing, which is really impressive, is making your approach so relevant to the world today and life today. And all of you mentioned social media, and I just think, it's really wonderful that you're drilling down into what modern consumers need and being so innovative with it. And hopefully it's enabling us, through your tools and your techniques to be a bit more resilient, a bit more in control, and be a bit more in balance overall. We do have time for some questions. I don't know if there are any in the audience. If you do have a question, throw your hand up in the air and we will come to you. We don't have microphones, so you'll have to shout loudly. Hi back there.
It was more about your conversation about, thank you firstly for sharing your experience, from 15 years old and all the struggles you went through and how that shaped your career today. And a lot of what you said resonated. I went to this philosophy festival in London. I don't know if you know of it, how the light gets in.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you're saying was being said at the talks there. And a lot of people were starting to ask questions about psychedelics and helping people with their anxieties, with these kinds of traumas, and how that's kind of doing a comeback. And I'm wondering if you, what your stance is when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the evidence of people that are, or the studies coming out that are people using cybacillin in order to help them with depression and stuff like that, and it does have an impact. It does have a positive impact. Not to say that everyone should go around running around eating magic mushrooms by themselves. There are actually people that can help you and help dose it properly and everything like that. And although it's still illegal here, there are places, especially in the kind of States and other places, where you can do that. And they kind of reset the mind is the best way of looking at it. And also as well, they affect. Interestingly, the part of the brain one of the parts of the brains that affect the most is the sense of self and the sense of ego. So actually taking them loosens up that strong sense of self that we have, and actually if you can get someone to help kind of journey you with that and help you crash it all apart and then build it back together, then it can be something that's therapeutically very powerful, especially for people that are treatment resistant and stuff like that. So it's certainly something to kind of speak to some experts about, and maybe not go wandering around a field on your own. Maybe, I don't know. But.
Have you watched Imperfect Strangers? I mean, that's basically what we're talking about, right? Being microdosed at Tranquillum.
I know a lot of
great.
people that have had very positive experiences with it.
But we don't do it over here because it's legal. You can do it in the US.
You can do it in the US, and there's I think Switzerland, and there's a couple of places that you can go and actually speak to kind of qualified people that know how to do it.
That's very cool. Hi.
Hi, I wanted to ask a question. Anybody can answer this, or everybody can answer this. Everything that you guys have mentioned today has been so useful, and it probably hits a chord with everyone. But I think the problem that I have being a doctor in the NHS and also in aesthetic medicine is motivation. How do we get people to repeat all the things that you've all mentioned in their own lives outside of our care, once we've given them empowered them with all the tools that they can use? How do we get them motivated, and how do we empower them? And do you just tell them, you're probably not ready for this, and come back to us when you're ready?
I feel like we were sort of having this conversation when you and I both arrived. What are your thoughts?
So I think there's a couple of things I'd say, and you've already said NHS doctor doing medicine. You cannot fix everybody. That's the first thing you have to realise. People have their own journeys and their paths to take, and sometimes, as a doctor, you think, but I know what that person needs and I know I can fix it. But actually, if they're not ready to have that treatment yet, it's not up to you to say, well, I can fix it, so this is what you're doing. All you can do is go, these are the pros, these are the cons, these are the alternatives, and in my professional opinion, I think this is where we'll be. And that's what informed consent and informed discussion is, that we're giving that information, but we're still allowing people to make that choice. I think the second thing that I would say is, when people are out of your care, if you have done a good job in that consultation and they relate to you and they feel that you have taken a genuine interest, and that whole active listening part of, well, actually, what about your life? What else are you doing? I'm really concerned that I still think that maybe you could do with a few more sessions with having a little bit of help with your mental health. I think medics are really bad at being very direct about asking about mental health, and I think we need to stop doing that. And we need to be very open about, how are you feeling? What's going on? How's your mental health doing? And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And people remember that you have done that they will circle back to you when they need it. But when you have them in your space and your care, I think the best thing that you can do is show them that actually your end goals are the same as theirs. You want to get them to a better place, be that with relation to a skin issue, an aesthetic issue, or a medical issue. And I think if people genuinely believe that they see that you are on their side and that you're not forcing drugs down them if that's not what they want, but also you're giving them genuine advice, they'll come back when they need it. But I don't think that we should fall into the trap of thinking we can always fix everyone.
Yeah. Good answer, wow. Cornelius, did you have anything to add?
It depends. Some people you get a feeling that you can't help some people. I mean, you might think that you know what they need, but they're not quite absorbing it. I had a conversation with someone today. I was just telling one of you who's someone, I want to do a fast. I want to do an extreme fast. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I can't eat this. I can't eat that. I can't eat that. My hair's falling out. I'm like, whoa. You need to speak to a doctor. You need to work out what's going on, and you need to eat. The last thing we need to do is for you to have a fast. But so I had to say to her, we can't help you. I can't help you unless you're following the kind of line of advice that I'm doing. The other thing that I would say is actually exposure to the person. The more times that you actually see them, sometimes you can keep them on or get them a momentum going. Supervision's a good thing, especially with weight loss and stuff like that. Supervision really helps. We find there's some studies that help. And then, like myself, I'm very flexible. There are some people that we do like a follow around package. It can happen where we spend like 3 or 4 hours, or especially myself will spend 3 or 4 hours with someone a day, perhaps sometimes over 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The longest I've had of seeing someone 3 hours a day was 6 months. So and that did have a big impact on them, but that's very unusual, and it's a particular type of person. That particular person wouldn't talk to anyone else apart from me and was not helped by anyone else apart from me, so that kind of level of commitment was kind of warranted. But especially as a GP, I mean, there's only so much that you can do, and I think getting really confident about referring out to people that you think will be more helpful or can provide more support.
Yeah, and then I would probably just add, as an aesthetic practitioner, probably I'm quite lucky that a lot of my clients are referred and they follow me, so they kind of know I live and breathe the lifestyle that I kind of sell, let's say. But when they come, I think it's just being open, honest, listening to them and just building that rapport and that relationship. And definitely for my clients, I'm always saying this is a journey, this is a treatment plan for minimum, as we are going to age together and move forward and be proactive and preventative. So I'm usually writing a plan for the next 1 year. So actually once they feel educated and once they feel like I've found a place and I've got a community and I feel supported, then even if they only starting on skincare today, when I'm ready, I know this is the place that is only going to do this, and if I ask for something and you're very honest and you say no, this is not suitable today, however I would recommend this, then they know that you're always kind of acting in their best interest. And even if they cheat on you sometimes and shop around, if you're too busy they can't get in, usually they come back and say, okay, I understand why maybe you said no and I went and did it anyway and things didn't turn out great, now can you fix it? And then you get the loyalty even more.
It's nice how you said journey. I feel like what each of you does is very much a journey, and it's really important. It's a nice way to approach it. Were there any other questions? I have one, just because it occurred to me that we didn't really discuss the fact that probably a lot of you are working virtually now, and I was wondering, actually, maybe it's just something each of you could answer very quickly. Do you think sort of the virtual one-to-one consultations are helpful for people in this space right now, or should we sort of be trying to, circling back to the gentleman's question, like try and have more face-to-face conversations and listen and be a bit more present? I mean, I can speak after a year of doing webinars for events like this that going back to doing it in real life is so nice, like having the energy of a person with you. So, Anjali, what do you think?
So I think virtual consultations had a role last year. It is better to see people in real life. It works for me in my practice provided I am super picky about what I allow into a virtual consult.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that I will point blank, my secretary knows you cannot book that in. So if you want a mole check, you cannot have that virtually, that does not work. But if you're on a medication that needs a very simple follow-up, I need to check you're not having side effects, it's a quick 5-10 minute chat. Absolutely fine. So I suspect for probably each one of us, it comes down to knowing what you are able to do virtually, but also what you have to physically see people for. From a personal point of view, I would much rather have somebody in clinic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm very face-to-face and hands-on. I love the interaction with the clients, and I think to fully assess my clients from like kind of 3D face and body, it doesn't really work on a camera, or even the pictures are never really like feeling the skin and touching. And
your Reiki healing definitely doesn't work on a screen.
No, it doesn't work. They need the hands-on. So yeah, it has its place. If a client lives very far away and they want to know, maybe just the treatment plan and have a little chit-chat, then I think it's quite good. But I'm still always saying this is still dependent on when you walk in and how you look. Yeah. But then if someone was having a complication, it's easy to just jump on 5-10 minutes and they still feel like, oh, I've seen you and I'm reassured and connected. Yeah.
Cornelius, you're doing virtual, right?
Yeah, doing virtual. I do morning meditation at AM virtually. You'd be surprised, meditation virtually does work really well. A lot of people are like, oh, but actually, once you've got your eyes closed and you're listening, if you can create enough kind of space around you that's peaceful, it works pretty well. In terms of the talking and the consultations, it works over Zoom, but actually there's so much of looking at people's micro expressions, and then they might do and move as in a particular way when I'm in a consult, and everything else is still, and I'm just looking at them, that makes me think, I need to investigate that or speak about that, or maybe this is an issue, or let's go more in this direction. Whereas on a Zoom, it can kind of, you can still make some of it out, but there's a less of, like you say, the energy of the person.
I think the body language as well, and maybe the fidgeting that you don't see because you're only sort of from the waist up.
And also people are in their own home, so either they're more self-conscious about what they're saying, or sometimes they're just not in the right kind of space to talk therapeutically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any more questions? Otherwise, one more.
So this is for you predominantly. So I work in the skin, and I found that I'm having to fight a lot of fires in terms of seeing patients after lockdown, because they've oversensitized their skin, because they've tried everything from social media, they're combining their AHAs with their retinols at the same time every day, but they feel very educated about what they're coming in. So they already have a preconception of what they should be doing, even though they're coming to you with inflammatory acne. Would you say that giving them evidence helps, or trying to strip it back? And
I usually go for the stripping back option. So probably similar to yourself, I have the conversation of, we all had a lot of time last year at home, a lot of people got into skincare, but just because we have all of these ingredients doesn't mean we need every single one of them. So what I tend to do, particularly if it's, for example, a skin aging concern or an acne concern, I always say, well, we're better off using one ingredient that's going to tackle all of that. So there I'd be like, there's prescription tretinoin. Let's go for prescription tret, or vitamin A or retinoid. But because it's irritating, we need to strip back on everything else. So your cleanser and your moisturizer are going to be super basic. They're going to be fragrance-free. They're going to support your skin barrier. So you can build in the most important part of your skincare routine. And that bit of your skincare routine makes your skin sensitive, so you have to use your sunscreen. And suddenly we have a really basic skincare routine that's got your sunscreen in the morning, it's got your retinoid at night. Quite frankly, everything else is pretty superfluous to that. So I don't tend to kind of go, well, the papers go this, and this. I'm just like, your skin's irritated, we need to pull back. I'm seeing lots of this. And then I think people respond to anecdotes, don't they? If you say as well, I'm seeing a lot of it, which I think we all are, and you explain the logic of why you're trying to strip everything back, people buy into that. And to be fair, if you look at most doctors that work in aesthetics or skin aging or dermatologists, what are the main things we actually use? We use prescription retinoid and we use our sunscreens. Everything else is a little bit of like icing on the cake, but it's not essential.
Very helpful. I think that's it for questions. I hope I haven't missed anyone. Just all that is left for me to say really is thank you to everyone in our audience for coming. It's been amazing to have you here. We would love to have you at all of our events going forward. Keep your fingers crossed they continue to be in real life. So sign up to all of our notifications. It's thebeautytriangle.com, and we'll keep you in the loop. And just a final round of applause for our amazing panel. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy. Do fill out your referral cards if you want any connections, and don't forget your goodie bag.